Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Lamp, and I'm here with my co-host, Mary Ardania, with our podcast, Let's Become a Beloved Society, Conversations Illuminating Your Path to Wholeness. Today is March 15th, 2023. And quick announcement, this will be the last broadcast in March, and we'll meet you again in April. And let me look really quick at the calendar to see what that first Friday is going to be. And of course, the computer doesn't want to behave itself. So it looks like it would be the 7th of April will be our next podcast after today. We hope you'll join us then, and we thank you for joining us today or listening after the fact. Today's conversation is about the devil, Satan. It's a follow-up on our conversation that we had last week about what is evil. And just a slight recap, ultimately, evil is life backwards. That's really the best recap you can give it. Right? If you're not living your life fully in advancing the play of life on earth, creating and experiencing heaven on earth, then you're going backwards in some way. And that's all that evil is. It isn't a thing of its own. It's a lack of love. It's a lack of forward movement in advancing the play of life. That's all it is. But there are some constructs out there, in addition to evil. There are the constructs of the Satan and the devil. And these are also obviously imbued with evil qualities, but they stand alone and represent their own things. And so we thought it would be a good idea to address that question as well. And before I get into it, I want to just frame all of this in a context to make it very clear what we're really trying to accomplish here. What we're trying to accomplish is the creation and experience of heaven on earth. And a lot of people don't know that. I would say the majority of people don't know that. And many people, perhaps not the majority, but many people have subscribed to some form of religion as a way to help guide them through what they're choosing to experience as life. And if there's one thing that's facing us right now, the one most critical, important thing that people could do to change the trajectory of what's happening on this planet and to become more aligned with the actual purpose of why we're here would be to redefine God for themselves. Because most religions have taught images of God that are not accurate. And so we have billions of people who consider themselves to be religious people, which when you say that implies good-heartedness, kindness, generosity. And yet, when we look at what's happening on earth, particularly things being perpetrated by people who claim to be religious, good religious people, what we're finding are not those things. They are not being kind. They're not being generous. They're not being loving. They're being judgmental and mean and cruel. And so I encourage everyone to reconsider your definition of God. And if you're believing in a God that is retaliatory and that punishes and that uh, seeks retribution when you make mistakes, I just wholeheartedly encourage you to reconsider that definition, because it's not the true definition. It's a definition that's been created by people to control other people.
Yeah.
Mary, do you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I want to chime in a little on that. God fearing, like, I've been dabbling on a dating site, and a lot of these men say that, I mean, I don't know if these are real humans or bots, but it says they're God fearing, or they say they're looking for a God fearing woman. And like, no, thank you. I'm not God fearing. I don't believe in a God that I have to fear. I believe in a God who is love. Why would a God who is love want to punish me for, whatever trivial thing? So a long time ago, I was reading the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Right.
And one of the things that stuck out to me in that book, like first right away, is we need to like use words to serve us instead of hurt us. And it was like, even our definition of God needs to be someone who's on our side,
Right.
So that's all I wanted to say. That right there is revolutionary if you grew up in a God-fearing religion kind of household. So that's all. God is on our side. That's the God I believe in.
Right. Actually, God is expressing through each and every one of us. We are individuated aspects of divinity.
Right.
And again, this notion of a God-fearing situation is meant to control people. There's no other reason for it. Oh, you better not do that, or this is going to happen. God's going to smite you. So now we might, before we get into the actual discussion of the devil and Satan, we might for a moment have a discussion about the notion of karma, because a lot of people believe that if you do something, then that energy will come back to you, and at that level, that's a fairly accurate description of how energy at a quantum physics level works. What you put out, you get back. But people also will have a problem with the idea of karma, because a lot of times bad things, what look to be bad things, happen to good people with no explanation or apparent reason. And so there are a lot of people who really have a hard time understanding what the term karma might mean, because in that case, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem balanced. And the issue here is that we don't understand, when we're looking at something like what we would call a bad thing happening to a good person. They don't deserve that. That's a horrible thing to happen to such a good person. Those are all our own judgments about what's happened. You really have to step back, as I like to say, and look at the bigger tapestry. Look at the bigger picture, or try to realize that you really have no idea what's ultimately moving the pieces in this play, or the pieces on the chessboard, as I'll sometimes call them. You don't know. And at an energetic level, everything is always as it should be. So the appearance of things that look bad, we're bringing that to that moment. It's our perception and our judgment that brings us there.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add, Mary?
Yeah, there's a story that I know I mentioned to you before. I may have mentioned it on this podcast. I think it's an old Chinese story where like the the guy finds a horse and they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky you found that horse." And he's like, you know, who knows what's lucky or not lucky. Then the
Right.
son is riding the horse and he falls off the horse and it's like, "Oh no, your son broke his leg. That's terrible." And the old man is all like, who knows
Maybe.
what's good and bad, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Maybe
The
it's
shrug,
terrible. Maybe
the
it
shrug
isn't.
of, non-judgment.
Right.
And then of course the emperor, whoever comes around, pressing young men into servitude to the army. And then it's like, "Oh, your son is so lucky his leg is broken, he can't go." So it's just a story that I like that shows that things you think are good and bad are not, like you said, the chess pieces are moving. And some of my best blessings have come from my biggest heartbreaks, ultimately, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So it's just like you said, accepting it all as what is here now and meant to be. I used to fight with life a lot. That's how I really look at it now. I was in a state of resistance to what life was serving me almost constantly. And life is just much better since I said, "You know what? Life knows better than I do. Let it do its thing. And my thing is over here in my yard." Thank
Right.
you.
Right. Right. I'm trying to think of who said this. I heard somebody say this recently. I think it might have been Matt Kahn. Between breath and death, no, between birth and death, there's breath. And that's really, right, the real key. Be here in the moment and experiencing the breath of the moment and whatever's happening in a non-judgmental, non-discriminatory way. Just observe it. Allow it to be as it is. One of the, we're kind of getting off away from the devil and the Satan for a minute, but I think that's okay. One of the things, and it's sort of segueing into the second question that we had on the agenda for today. A lot of people are starting to feel, a lot of people that have been practicing spirituality are starting to experience feelings of frustration and a lack of connectedness. Like they do their practices that they've been doing all along, and those practices are not bringing them the comfort and relief that they used to. And I wanted to take a moment to speak to that, because what's happening, and this can be even for people who have not done much spiritual work, but if you've even done a little, if you have a daily routine, for example, perhaps you meditate for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, or you do a cleansing once or twice a day, or something like that. It may be time to stop that practice and allow life to reveal to you a new practice to use or to follow. Because what's happened here is that the frequency on this planet is elevating. And if you think of learning spirituality, becoming more spiritual, becoming a more divine being, that's a process, right? It's like an education. So many of the tools that we've been using and many of the tools that I teach, it's not that the tools aren't useful. The tools are still very useful, but to the right person at the right grade or level. And so perhaps what's happened to a lot of the people who are here helping this movement of light take hold is that we've become stagnant in our practices simply by uh, staying where we were when life is a process. And so it's like being in 8th grade, but you're still doing 4th grade arithmetic, or being in high school and you're still doing, elementary school addition and subtraction when you should be doing algebra. So, and what happens is these tools that we use, they come sort of they become spiritual hideouts, little ego hideouts where you think you're really doing your thing and you're being a spiritual person, but you're really using those tools now to sort of hide behind, and you're not advancing. It's safe. It feels good. But part of life is to step out of that safety zone. We can't become the light that we are if we stay in this safe place all the time. But the reason people stay in that safe place is because many times there is that outlying fear of what will happen, right? There's billions of people that believe in the vengeful God, that you can't step outside your boundaries. You can't, don't have too big a pair of pants on.
That's funny, Linda, because I was actually talking with one of my coworkers about Lucifer, because our thing was Satan and the devil. And that's Lucifer, right? Too big for his britches. I also wanted to say, but that could be a good segue back into that topic.
Right.
But I wanted to say, as far as what you're talking about with the tools becoming outdated and all, this process we've been going through where like the whole world, like all of these systems are crumbling and needing to be rebuilt. Well, that's happened in my life too, with like every single system I had, like systems for doing my laundry or doing the dishes before bed, or like how I store things. Literally everything in my house. Like, it's not just on a planetary level. I'm here to say that my micro has been like going to hell in a handbasket. And I've been looking here going, what is going on? And it's the same with, it's everything is
Right.
here for a refresh and a reset. So
Right.
yeah, the kinds of things I was doing haven't been working on
Right.
really every level. And so I've been trying different things and seeing, okay, maybe this is working a little bit. Okay, maybe that's good. But it's like the way in life, it's like everything is like that right now, I think. And so, yes, of course, our spiritual or energetic tools, whatever the things are that we've used to keep our energy, where we want it and need it to be. Conditions out there have changed.
Right.
So, if it's raining more often, it alters the frequency of how you wash your car or whatever.
Right.
It's like that, uh, you know, like I was not really worrying about sort of cleaning my energetic field because, like, I'm God and they're God and we're all love and it's all cool. Only now it's like things are kind of jacked up sometimes. And I've been having to put just a little more separation sometimes between other people' energy and my energy because, yeah, anyway. But I've been doing that anyway. Tangent. We're all jewels on God's dance floor, a line
Yes.
from a poem that I love. And so that's what I've been clinging to. And I'm just like, the other day I was like, okay, that guy's a jewel on God's dance floor. Jesus would definitely have invited him to the party. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
that's, anyway, I know that's kind of off topic, but
Well,
there you go.
it isn't necessarily off topic because what it does is it introduces a coping skill that I wanted to talk about. So I think it's perfect. What we tend to do is we tend to go through our days using judgment as our rudder, and we're constantly judging things, including ourselves. So, and I'll do it. Uh, Sometimes someone will pull out in front of me or do something in a vehicle that is really inappropriate, and most of the time I'm fine and I'm in a groove and I'm flowing with what's flowing and it's not an issue. But occasionally, for whatever reason, it will jar me and I'll have a negative response to it. And then I'll realize I'm having a negative response, and then I judge myself for having done that, right? And for failing to stay in my flow. Well, rather, hey Nanette, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Um, Rather than going that route when we realize what we've done, it's better to try, or I don't want to use the word better, but try just the next time you experience it, try rather than going into judgment to come at it from a place of simple observation. Oh, look at that. I just got upset with that guy. Don't bring more to it or make more out of it than it is. Because there are all these other, as we've talked about, that you're surrounded in a soup of energy. Unless you're way, way, way out in the middle of the wilderness where miles around you, you're being influenced by the energy of everybody around you. And it's unrealistic to think that we're always going to be able to stay in flow, or what is that word, the Buddhist word, sansana or something. It's not realistic to think that that's going to be your perfect state all the time.
Mhm.
And so when your harmonious moment is interrupted, rather than beating yourself up about it, or in any way judging yourself, just observe it. Just
Mhm.
observe it. Um, we need to build in grace for ourselves. And that's one of the things that many religions and many parents don't teach and don't participate in. We need to be able to show grace with each other, but with ourselves first, because we are divine. And if we're not acknowledging our own divinity, then we can't acknowledge everybody else's divinity. Anything to add to that, Mary?
Um, Sometimes I just label it Mary judging, when I notice myself doing it. I'm like, oh, look, Mary judging. Um, and then you can let it go. And another thing I wanted to say was, Vito Mucci, in his book, Coffee for Consciousness, talks about this thing called the beach of quiet emotion. And it's like, okay, so that's when we're in that Zen calm state. And like you said, it's easy to be in that state when you're like in the wilderness, far away from other people, or even, perhaps in my own cave of my home with nobody else. But like, one thing that we don't think about is the more calm your beach is, then when you get out in the world and something ruffles it, the more disruptive it is.
Right.
It's like the more we have that, the more disturbing it is when we don't have it. And that's something to just remember and factor in, you
Right.
know. And that's really, well, that's the work slash play, right? Of
Right.
life.
Right.
how do we transition between all of the states of being that come up over the course of the day, the moment, the week, the year? It's like, I remember saying, you know, to someone, if, it doesn't matter, and this relates to the tools needing to change. It doesn't matter if I can go sit on my meditation mat and be totally like calm, if when I go out into the world, I'm like, yelling at every driver out there or whatever. It's like, ideally, the tools help us to deal with the world as it exists, and it's changing right now. So
Right.
it makes sense that the tools might need to, or our use of them might need to change with it.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. So what Nanette says is that she writes on the rear window with a glass marker "love," and that helps her stay in a loving frame of mind when she's in her car. And what I do, I wear, and we've talked about this. You wear a lot of hearts. I wear hearts. I also wear a lot of T-shirts that have sayings on them. Of course, this shirt has love on it, but I think the T-shirt I was wearing before I came into the studio today said, "What if kindness is the new cool?" And so, we can use our persona to help uh, communicate to others, but it also can be tools that we're using for ourselves as well.
Yes.
Um, So for a moment, let's segue back into the topic of Satan and the devil, and see where we can get here. So the meaning of Satan is the angel who, in Jewish belief, is commanded by God to tempt humans to sin, to accuse the sinners, and to carry out God's punishment. This is per Merriam-Webster's definition. The second definition in Merriam-Webster is the rebellious angel who, in Christian belief, is the adversary of God and the Lord of evil. And so then the devil, in both Christian and Jewish belief, the chief evil spirit, also Satan, a person with specified characteristics, is the second definition. So, and then here's another definition of the devil. The devil is profoundly bad spirit, being, or monster. Your religious uncle might blame all behavior or influence on the devil. This says in Christianity, this is from vocabulary.com. In Christianity, the devil, which is sometimes capitalized, is the essence of evil and also known as Satan. So there's a little bit of a crossover here because traditionally Satan is the angel in Jewish belief, but now it's crossed over into Christianity as well. The word is also used to mean a very hateful or cruel human. He must be a devil to hurt a kitten, or sometimes a mischievous trickster. What a devil she is, playing practical jokes. So an evil supernatural being, a cruel, wicked, or inhuman person, a rowdy or mischievous person, usually a young man. These are all various definitions of devil. So again, truly it seems as if devil sort of evolved from Satan, and Satan is, and to me, to use a word angel to describe Satan is like an oxymoron to me. How can they be an angel if they're also supposed to be Satan or the devil? They can't be both in my book.
I mean, in the Christian belief, it was like Lucifer was the most beautiful angel, sort of the morning star. And then what, he defied God or something? I don't really understand exactly what happened. He thought he was, I mean, I internalized it as he got too big for his britches and challenged God or something, and then they got thrown out of heaven. So that's how he was like the fallen angel. But from what you're saying, in Judaism, he's actually an angel who's supposed to like tempt people to do evil. Is that what you said? So that in a way, in that definition, they're actually doing God's work. If
Right.
God wants to tempt us and see if we can resist,
Right.
which is kind of a cruel game to play God.
Which is why you know for sure it was something a human thought up.
Yeah.
Right?
A
Because there
kind of
is
sadistic human.
right. There is no, there is no cruelty in God, in the divine. There's no cruelty. And when things happen, people would say, well, what about what happens in nature where, a lion comes along and eats a little baby deer or something? That's cruel. It's not.
That's survival.
It's not. It's how things work. And it when you get down into the nitty-gritty, what you really need to understand is that everything is in agreement. Everything has to be in agreement. There isn't anything else. So while it may look cruel to human eyes that a lion comes along and eats a little baby deer or the calf or whatever, that is how that life works. That's how those lives work. They all agreed to come and play that game together.
And
There's no surprise.
Nature isn't cruel.
Exactly.
Like you said, it just is what it is. Cruelty, okay, so here we're going to get into some semantics, but to me, cruelty must have an evil intent or at least a mean intent. Cruelty means intending harm, I believe. So then, I don't know, now I'm back to that Satan tempting us. And I'm thinking of like a parent with a child deliberately putting roadblocks, obstacles when it's learning how to walk, right? Oh, let's see if it trips over this block. Oh, let's see if it steps on that Lego. Malicious. Like, I don't believe in a God who's sort of malicious.
Right. No, all of these things, this is how we know that they all came from human beings. These are not divine teachings.
And why are humans malicious? That's probably beyond the scope of our discussion today, but I guess it's Satan. Satan tempts us humans to be malicious.
Well, that's certainly one definition or explanation, but people are ultimately malicious because they're in pain of some kind.
Right.
They're lacking in love. They're experiencing a lack of love in their lives. And as a result, they are perpetrating a lack of love in other people's lives.
Yeah.
It's the energy, the frequency by which they're vibrating.
Yeah.
And it's well, I don't want to use the word brokenness, but it's a brokenness in the flow of love in their lives. So we were talking about Lucifer for a minute. So let's just, because Lucifer, morning star, also known as Samuel before his banishment from heaven, is a fictional character and titular protagonist of an urban fantasy comedy drama series called Lucifer. Now that is from Wikipedia. So that is not necessarily the the true definition here. Lucifer as a name for the devil in Christian theology, the more common meaning in English is Lucifer, rendering to the Hebrew word. And I don't want to even try to pronounce that. But let me go back. There are some other definitions here.
Uh-oh.
And there are a lot of, if you just put in Lucifer meaning into Google, you get some interesting sponsored responses. So according to just oxfordlanguages.com, another name for Satan, the planet Venus when it rises in the morning. So the original origin of the word Lucifer came from Latin, lux or lux for light and fur for bearing. So the Old English Lucifer from Latin, light bringing morning star, is where that comes from, the meaning of the word itself. Interpreted or believed by Christian interpreters to be a reference to Satan.
It's just, I think what's interesting is I don't know, and I don't know how much is from the Bible or just from lore that I picked up as a Catholic child, but like the idea that Satan was God's most beautiful angel and went so wrong. I guess it's to keep us from having pride or something. I don't know. I'm trying to understand the whole thing. And Nanette says, even as a child, she had a very hard time buying Lucifer, the devil. It didn't resonate with her at all. And, I mean, I bought it because I was sold it and there was no alternative. But from the time I could really think about like God and all, it didn't resonate with me. But
it's funny because when I was little, I saw through all of these teachings right away. That to me, all of these teachings just struck me as, well, you're just trying to control me with your ideas, because none of those things were true for me. And I knew in my heart of hearts that there is no devil, that God is not, I had a direct line in my mind to source and to answers and to my three guardian angels, if you will. And so none of those teachings ever made any sense to me. And I always just saw them as manipulative stories to try and control people. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what religion is.
It is. And the thing is, speaking as someone who was, raised as a Catholic from day one, and I did not have any line to God that I was aware of as a child. And it was always, there's a priest in between. There's no line between me and God. There's a line to me and the priest has the God knowledge. And, I guess I'm really seeing how easy it is to fall for it, hook, line, and sinker, because I did. I accepted it. I bought it. I don't know that I ever really totally bought into the hell thing. But, I was raised Catholic and I question things about the Bible. And my mom would say, basically, as long as you believe in Jesus, it's okay, honey. That was her answer. You just got to believe in Jesus. But I was just talking to my coworker about Lucifer, like I said, and the thing I realized, because he mentioned Paradise Lost, and that book, which is about this whole subject of, Lucifer and the fall from heaven, that book is the book that ended my time as a religion person. That is the book that I read, and I said, okay, John Milton was divinely inspired by God to write this book, which is sort of his retelling of this biblical story. And how is that different from the actual Bible? a bunch of men sat down and wrote their stories, refracted through their lenses and their awarenesses after however long of talking, because they weren't even written down at first. So I owe like Lucifer and that whole story my fall from grace in terms of giving up religion. So that was interesting to realize that today during that conversation. That's a little bit of an aside.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
But so I think my point I was thinking of was a lot of people don't have, you know, an aha moment. And
Right.
so they're still locked into their religious upbringing, or if they came to it as an adult. And I get that people want answers, and religion gives you like a process and answers and a system. Like I've thought in life, God, why isn't there a user's manual or a map or like some kind of resource? I mean, there's lots of resources, but just, you are here and this is how life works. And I think for a lot of people, religion provides that. And even if we don't always like the answers it's giving us, there's answers instead of just all these damn questions and confusion that life can be sometimes. So I just had that other aha moment, which is that's why people cling so hard to their religious beliefs. I think a lot of the times they don't want to step out into the unknown. I mean, that's scary. And then what if they're wrong and the Bible is all true and now they're going to go to hell? I remember when I stopped believing and they're like, well, if God's true and if you believe, you don't lose anything. But if it's not true, you don't lose anything. But if it is true, you're going to hell. So just believe it. And I'm like, but if God is God, God knows whether I'm believing it or giving it lip service so as not to go to hell. Like I can't believe in a God who would be taken in by my ruse.
Right. Right. Right.
Clearly, I've thought a lot about all of this.
Right. There's no faking it. There's no hiding it from the divine.
Yeah, exactly.
And for some reason, this thought just came into my head, so I'm going to give it voice. But this is where a lot of addiction comes from, is people hiding from themselves and from those around them. That's what one tool that they might use if you want to hide is to just stay inebriated or stay, in an altered state of consciousness. It doesn't hurt as much. In a way, it hurts even more, but because you're so numbed, you're not realizing that you're really causing yourself in the long run much more pain when you are, using things to hide behind like that.
Self-medicate.
Right.
There's a book, I haven't read it yet, by Gabor Mate called, I believe it's called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. And it's about addiction. And that phrase, hungry ghosts, to describe addiction is just so evocative. I'm like, I have to buy that book and read it. I haven't read it yet, but I bought it. Anyway.
That's very interesting. Hungry ghosts.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, and that brings a layer in, and I don't know if he talks about it or not, but if we will remember that because of the way time is working, other lives that we're having them at the same time as now. And so they can be influencing this lifetime.
Right.
As hungry ghosts.
Yeah, the hungry ghosts can be from any lifetime.
Right.
That is wild. Thank you for introducing that concept into my brain.
Right. Right.
Plus, you know, if we come in contact with other people's energies, sometimes their hungry ghosts might leak into our field.
Right. Right. And for those who are not familiar, I want to just bring up uh, the frequency of Schumann resonance. If you're not familiar with it, and I'll spell it for you, it's SCHUMANN resonance. If you Google that, you'll find a website that monitors the Schumann resonance on the planet. The reason I bring it up is that if you're someone who is experiencing what may appear to be random energetic imbalances, you might want to take a look at this website. You can put an app on your phone so you can check it periodically. What I have discovered is that a lot of times if I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep, and it's not my brain, it's not like I wake up thinking about something and that's what's keeping me awake. I just wake up and then I'm awake and there aren't thoughts going on. If I go and I check what's happening with the Schumann resonance frequencies, I will see an indication that there is what I would call a blast going on, or an imbalance. And more, I would suggest to everyone that you pay attention to the energetic frequencies that you're feeling in your body. Pay attention to them, observe them, because everything is trying to reestablish itself. It's not even a reset, it's a reestablishment. Neil Donald Walsh says that we're remembering, and that's what's happening. It's a remembering in terms of our own psyches and minds. But for everything else, it's more than that. It's a reestablishment. It's a reorganization, because we're moving from 3D frequency to a 5D frequency. And the stars are aligning, the planets are aligning to make these things happen for us. And we're living in this soup of energy. And so not overlooking the influence that that's having on you on a daily basis, I think it's really important. Starting to integrate an awareness, a daily awareness, and even a moment-to-moment awareness, weaving observation into your daily practice is, I think, highly recommended right now. Mary, anything to add to that?
I agree with you, and I just want to say that it's like, you know, as an example, I was going to work or home from work, I don't remember, and some guy got on the subway trolley, not subway, you know, ancient New York coming through. Someone got on the trolley and they're like, I don't know what was going on with that guy, but he had a lot of energy that seemed very angry, that was coming out randomly towards anybody in his sphere. So I was very far from his sphere. But like, I noticed how angry I got. And just like, to me, part of paying attention is noticing like what's other people and what's me, and
Right.
there's a lot of adjusting that needs to happen right now between the angry, crazy people, the regular, frustrated people, the chaos of like banks and trains and, you know, all the stuff going on, and then all the natural disasters. And there's a lot going on energetically when you talk about energy and frequency and all of that. And so it's good to pay attention and just notice, like, you know, on the daily, kind of tune in. I use words like, how jangly is the energy today, you know? Just so I have sort of a baseline. Like, I think it was going to work. I noticed that somebody was being a little annoying, and I was like Hulk level angry about it. So it's like, okay, if I'm Hulk level angry over this minor thing, that probably means that we are in a state where everybody's feathers are easily ruffled.
Right.
So I'm just going to be over here being as smooth as possible and focusing on love and trying really hard not to add to the chaos.
Right.
So, you know, that's a good practice right there.
Right. And I have a little mantra to add to that. We are here. Here we are. It's I have found it to be actually quite useful. Yesterday, I spent a day in the car, well, not totally in the car, but driving over to another town 90 miles away and then driving back and then doing the stuff over there, going to a store over there and lots of people. Um, and you know, there's people with shopping carts and they're not paying attention and they're just in the middle of the aisle and they're taking up and you're trying to, you know, I got the car running outside. I'm trying to get my stuff done. And so I just was using that. Here we are. We are here. Here we are. And I just found that it just was sort of a smoothing,
Yeah.
right? Just like
Yeah.
it reminds me, it coalesces the idea that we're in a co-creation here,
Yeah.
because it isn't just me and my mission. I'm in a store with all kinds of other people that got their own missions,
Yeah.
and everybody's on their own mission, but somehow we got to manage to all move around inside this store together.
Yeah.
And
Here we are.
it yeah,
I
we
love
are
it.
here we are, you know. And it I forget if it's a 9 or an 11, but it's a nice number phrase. And try it, you know, try weaving that into your daily thing and see what happens. I think for people, you know, and the other thing is and I'm sure you didn't, but just to remind people, don't beat yourself up when you discover you've you know, let yourself down in one of your practices that you're trying to do. Don't beat yourself up. Don't go there, because now you're just feeding the cycle.
And don't
It's
even think of it as letting yourself down.
right, right,
It's just
right,
what is, and there's nothing
right,
wrong with any of it.
right. Just love the moment. Love the moment and understand that divinity is expressing in the moment for us to oh, what was that mantra I mentioned last week? This moment is here to help me learn to love like never before.
Right.
That's, you know, and then if you add to that, we are here, here we are.
Here we
Uh,
are.
I think it will go a long way towards helping make the day-to-day experience more tolerable and understandable.
And smoother. And I really want to add, like you said, something about loving the moment. And I agree that that's what I'm always aiming for. But if you can't love it, just let it be. And that's
Right.
what I like about we are here, here we are. It's like that is 100% acceptance that this is the moment, these are the conditions, this is what it holds, this is my place in it. And it's just that acceptance,
And a bit of
Sometimes-
detachment,
yeah,
right? A bit of detachment from it.
yeah, yeah. It's not all about me.
Right, right, right.
It's a social thing.
Correct.
Society, community,
Yeah.
because we're all in it together, whether we know it or not. We're all floating here in this cosmic soup together.
Yes.
Swimming, I guess, if it's soup.
Yes. Yes. I want to close just on a note. There's a lot of tension in the world right now at the governmental levels. And, China is potentially going to be helping Russia fight Ukraine, which is a hellacious thing to
We don't want that.
think about. We may be on the brink of some kind of additional war with Russia over the drone incident. I mean, God help us. I hope that there's some other way that we're going to move through this. We have Republican states all around the country lashing out at the LGBTQ community, the children, the adults, drag queens in Alaska. There's a town trying to outlaw drag queen performances. When you're hearing about these incidences happening and listening to the news, be sure not to give your energy to these stories, right? Step back and remember there is a huge tapestry hanging here. And it's not really for us to know how those things work out. That piece over there isn't about us. If it's not touching you in your own life, don't give energy to it. If you want to make a donation, you can make a donation. You can, send clothes, but don't give your mental energy to thinking about it or worrying about it or trying to somehow mentally influence it. It is what it is. And unless it's in your life, it's not for you. So just the way you can help it the best is to be love. Be love in your day-to-day world. Be love in your day-to-day interactions. Be love with yourself first. Be kind. Practice self-compassion. So we're straight up on the hour. Just a reminder, our next podcast will be April 7th. I'd like to thank everybody who's been here. Mary, do you have any closing thoughts? Love you too. Thank you so much, Jeanette.
Just second the be love, and it's disturbing to see the things that are happening, and people trying to roll back the progress that has been made in terms of being love, like
Right.
with the LGBT community and stuff, and others, women, whatever, racial, it's all
Right.
And the bottom line is that love is the point. And remember that, some young people don't have hope because of how, but it's like we made things happen. We can make things happen.
Right.
And what we need to do is be love for
Right.
all of us.
Right.
That is the main thing. So, yeah.
That's how we'll become a beloved society.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We love you. Namaste. Much love.